My name is David Sinclair, and I am 76 years old. I worked for 43 years as a radar technician, specializing in underwater sonar systems for commercial and military applications. I have spent more time analyzing radar screens than most people spend watching television. I know what fish look like on sonar. I know what submarines look like. I know what debris, rocks, temperature gradients, and equipment malfunctions look like. And I know, with absolute certainty, that what I recorded on the night of September 12, 1987, was none of those things. I am recording this testimony from my home in Aberdeen, where I have lived since retiring in 2010. My hands shake now from age and from the medication I take for my heart condition. The doctors tell me I have perhaps a year, maybe less. My time for keeping secrets has run out. For 38 years, I have carried this burden alone. I signed confidentiality agreements that prevented me from speaking publicly about what I recorded. I was threatened with legal action, professional ruin, even criminal prosecution if I disclosed what I had seen. The company I worked for buried the data, classified it, made it disappear as thoroughly as if it had never existed. But I kept a copy. Hidden, encrypted, stored in multiple locations over the decades. I kept it because I knew that someday, when the legal threats no longer mattered and my career was behind me, I would need to tell the truth about what happened that night in September 1987. That day has come. I am dying. The confidentiality agreements are meaningless now. The company no longer exists, having been absorbed by larger corporations decades ago. The people who threatened me are dead or retired or have forgotten about the incident entirely. And the data I recorded sits in a waterproof case in my closet, waiting to be revealed. Before I tell you about that night, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video with anyone who will listen. What I am about to reveal has been suppressed for 38 years, and it deserves to be heard. The evidence exists. The data is real. And the world needs to know what lives in Loch Ness. Now, let me take you back to September 1987. I was 38 years old in the autumn of 1987, working for a defense contractor called Maritime Systems Limited. We specialized in developing advanced sonar and radar technology for naval applications, submarine detection, underwater mapping, acoustic monitoring. It was sensitive work, often classified, always precise. In September 1987, we were contracted by the Royal Navy to test a new prototype sonar system in Loch Ness. The loch was chosen specifically because of its depth, its relatively controlled environment, and its freshwater composition, which provided different acoustic properties than ocean testing. The Navy wanted to know how the system would perform in detecting submarines in deep, confined waters. The fact that Loch Ness was famous for monster sightings was irrelevant to our mission. We were not monster hunters. We were military contractors testing expensive equipment under controlled conditions. If we happened to detect something unusual, we would document it and move on. Our job was technology assessment, not cryptozoology. I was part of a 4-person team deployed to the loch for 3 weeks of intensive testing. Our team leader was Commander Richard Webb, a career Royal Navy officer with 30 years of experience and no patience for nonsense. Our data analyst was Dr. Helen Morrison, a brilliant acoustic specialist from Cambridge. And our equipment operator was a young technician named Simon Fletcher, fresh from university and eager to prove himself. We set up our base of operations on a modified fishing vessel called the Caledonian, anchored in the deep water near Urquhart Bay. The vessel had been retrofitted with our prototype sonar array, a sophisticated system capable of detecting objects as small as a football at depths of up to 800 feet, with resolution far superior to anything commercially available at the time. The first week of testing was routine. We mapped the loch bottom in extraordinary detail, detecting schools of fish, measuring water temperature gradients, calibrating our equipment against known reference points. Everything performed exactly as designed. Commander Webb was pleased. Dr. Morrison was collecting excellent data. Simon was learning quickly. I was bored. 40 hours a week staring at a radar screen, watching fish swim and water move, documenting everything in meticulous detail. It was important work, certainly, but it was also tedious in the way that precision work always is. That changed on September 12th, during the night shift. I was alone in the sonar room. The others were sleeping, trusting me to monitor the equipment and wake them if anything significant occurred. It was 2 in the morning, and I was fighting to stay awake, sustained by bad coffee and the knowledge that my shift would end at 6. The sonar was set to continuous scanning mode, sweeping the water in a 360-degree radius around the vessel, penetrating to maximum depth. I was watching the display with half attention, my mind wandering, when something moved across the screen that made my drowsiness evaporate instantly. It was large. Far too large to be a fish. The sonar return showed an object approximately 35 to 40 feet in length, moving through the water at a depth of 400 feet, roughly half a mile from our position. I sat forward, suddenly alert, my hands moving to the controls to refine the image. The object was moving at approximately 8 knots, faster than any fish in a loch should be capable of sustained swimming. The shape was elongated, with what appeared to be 4 distinct protrusions that could be interpreted as limbs or flippers. My first thought was submarine. But no submarine was scheduled to be in the loch, and this object was moving in a way that seemed organic rather than mechanical. The movements were fluid, graceful, with subtle variations in speed and direction that suggested living creature rather than engineered craft. I increased the scan resolution, focusing all available sensors on the object. The image refined, sharpened. I could see details now, the rough contours of the body, the way the protrusions moved in coordinated rhythm, the subtle flexing of what might be a neck or forward section. My heart was pounding. This was not a fish. This was not a submarine. This was not debris or a temperature anomaly or any of the hundreds of false positives I had learned to identify over years of radar analysis. This was something alive. Something massive. Something that should not exist in a Scottish freshwater loch. I reached for the recording controls and activated every system we had. Video capture of the radar display. Digital logging of all sensor data. Acoustic recording of the sonar returns. Timestamped documentation of every measurement. If this was real, if I was actually detecting what I thought I was detecting, I needed irrefutable evidence. The object continued moving, apparently unaware of or unconcerned by our sonar pulses. It followed the contours of the loch bottom for approximately 8 minutes, staying at consistent depth, maintaining steady speed. Then, with a movement so swift I almost missed it, it dove. The depth reading changed from 400 feet to 600 feet in less than 30 seconds. Whatever this was, it could move vertically through the water column with extraordinary speed. And it was now directly beneath our vessel, perhaps 200 yards down. I should have woken Commander Webb. Protocol dictated that any unusual contact be reported immediately to the team leader. But I hesitated, frozen by a mixture of professional caution and personal fascination. What if I was wrong? What if this was some equipment malfunction I had failed to recognize? Webb would not appreciate being woken at 2 in the morning for a false alarm. So I watched. I documented. I recorded everything. And I waited to see what the object would do next. What it did was surface. The object rose from 600 feet to 200 feet in less than a minute. The speed was impossible for anything biological I knew of, the pressure change alone should have been fatal to any living creature. Yet the sonar return showed no signs of distress, no explosive decompression, nothing but smooth, controlled ascent. At 200 feet, it leveled off and began circling our vessel. Not close, it maintained a distance of approximately 300 yards, but unmistakably circling, as if examining us from a safe distance. I activated the surface radar, hoping to get visual confirmation if the object broke the water line. The night was clear, with a nearly full moon providing decent visibility. I glanced through the porthole, scanning the dark water for any sign of disturbance. Nothing. The loch remained calm, undisturbed. But on the sonar screen, the object continued its slow circuit around our vessel, massive and undeniable. I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. I reached for the secure radio and woke Commander Webb. "Sir, this is Sinclair in the sonar room. I have a contact. Large, biological, exhibiting behavior unlike anything in our reference database. You need to see this." Webb was in the sonar room within 3 minutes, pulling a jacket over his pajamas, his expression shifting from irritation to intense focus as he studied the display. "How long have you been tracking this?" 12 minutes, sir. Since 01:47 hours. All systems are recording. He leaned closer to the screen, his experienced eyes analyzing the data with practiced efficiency. Size estimate: 35 to 40 feet in length. Current depth 200 feet. Speed variable, currently approximately 4 knots. For distinct appendages visible, suggesting either fins or limbs. Movement patterns consistent with active swimming rather than passive drift. Submarine. No mechanical signature. Movement is too organic. And no submarine I know of can perform the vertical maneuvers this object has demonstrated. Webb straightened, his expression unreadable. "Wake Dr. Morrison and Fletcher. I want everyone in this room documenting this contact. And Sinclair," he paused. "Good work spotting this. Whatever it is." Within 10 minutes, all 4 of us were crowded into the sonar room, watching the object complete another circuit of our vessel. Dr. Morrison was running acoustic analysis, measuring the sonar returns with scientific precision. Fletcher was operating the backup systems, ensuring we had redundant recordings of everything. Commander Webb stood behind us, silent and observant. "The acoustic signature is biological," Dr. Morrison announced after several minutes of analysis. "I'm detecting muscle contractions, water displacement consistent with limb movement, possibly even breathing or some form of respiratory activity. This is definitely a living organism." "Impossible," Fletcher said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Nothing that large could survive in a freshwater loch. The ecosystem couldn't support it. And yet there it is," Webb said quietly. "On our screens. Undeniably present." We tracked the object for another 37 minutes. During that time, it completed 4 circuits of our vessel, dove twice to depths exceeding 600 feet, and at one point surfaced briefly. We saw the disturbance on the surface radar, a large wake moving through the water, though the object itself remained below the waterline. Then, at 0324 hours, it simply vanished. Not gradually, not swimming away. One moment it was there on our screens, large and solid and impossible. The next moment, it was gone. The sonar showed nothing but water and fish and the empty loch bottom. We searched for another 2 hours, scanning in all directions, penetrating to maximum depth. Nothing. Whatever we had tracked had either left the area completely or had hidden itself so effectively that our sophisticated military-grade sonar could not detect it. If you're still watching this, if David's testimony is capturing your attention, please take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel and share this video. The evidence I'm about to describe has been suppressed for 38 years. It needs to be heard. Now let me tell you what happened in the days that followed. The rest of that night was a blur of documentation and analysis. We reviewed every recording, checked every measurement, verified every timestamp. The The data was consistent, thorough, and absolutely conclusive. We had tracked a large biological entity in Loch Ness for 49 minutes, documenting its size, movement, and behavior with military precision. At dawn, Commander Webb convened a meeting. His expression was grave. "What we recorded last night is extraordinary. It appears to be evidence of a large unknown species living in Loch Ness. However, our mission here is to test sonar equipment, not to conduct cryptozoological research. I need to report this contact to my superiors and await instructions." "You're going to tell the Navy we found the Loch Ness Monster?" Fletcher asked, disbelief clear in his voice. "I'm going to tell them we detected a large unidentified biological entity during equipment testing. What they choose to do with that information is their decision, not ours." Webb made the call using the vessel's secure communication system. We were not privy to the conversation, but his expression when he returned told us everything we needed to know. The Navy was taking this seriously. 2 days later, 3 men in civilian clothes arrived on a military helicopter. They identified themselves as representatives from the Ministry of Defense, though they provided no names and no formal credentials. They reviewed our recordings, interviewed each of us separately, and spent hours analyzing the data. Then they informed us that everything we had recorded was now classified under the Official Secrets Act. We were to discuss the incident with no one, not colleagues, not family, not friends. We were to turn over all recordings, all documentation, all physical evidence. We were to sign confidentiality agreements with severe penalties for violation, including criminal prosecution. And we were to complete our equipment testing as if nothing had happened. I objected. This is extraordinary scientific evidence. It should be studied, analyzed, shared with the research community. Mr. Sinclair, one of the men, interrupted, his voice cold and final. "You are a civilian contractor working on a classified military project. The data you recorded belongs to the Crown. You have no authority to determine how it is used or disclosed. You will sign the agreement, or you will face prosecution under national security laws. Those are your only options." I signed. We all signed. What choice did we have? They took everything. Every recording, every analysis, every document we had produced. They even took the logbooks, ensuring no written record remained aboard the Caledonian. Within 6 hours of their arrival, it was as if the incident had never occurred. But I had made a copy. During the initial chaos of the sighting, while everyone was focused on the screens and the data was being recorded to multiple systems, I had connected a personal storage device and duplicated everything. It was technically a violation of security protocols, but at the time I thought of it as simple backup, ensuring we had redundant copies in case of equipment failure. That copy, hidden and encrypted, became my insurance policy. My proof that I was not mad, that what I had seen was real. And my burden to carry for the next 38 years. We completed our equipment testing over the following 2 weeks. The sonar system performed exactly as designed. The Royal Navy accepted delivery. Maritime Systems Limited received payment. Commander Webb received a commendation for successful project management. Dr. Morrison published a paper on acoustic detection in freshwater environments, carefully omitting any mention of our extraordinary discovery. And I went back to my ordinary life, carrying an extraordinary secret. The first year was the hardest. I wanted desperately to tell someone, my wife, my colleagues, anyone who might understand the magnitude of what I had witnessed. But the confidentiality agreement was explicit and frightening in its threatened consequences. I had a family to support, a career to protect. Speaking publicly would destroy both. So I stayed silent. I went to work each day, analyzed radar screens, attended meetings, wrote reports. I became very good at pretending that September 12, 1987 had been just another night of routine equipment testing. But privately, I could not let it go. I spent my evenings studying everything I could find about Loch Ness, about reported sightings, about the history of searches and expeditions. I read scientific papers on freshwater ecosystems, on prehistoric marine reptiles, on the possibility of unknown species surviving in isolated environments. And I reviewed my hidden recordings, over and over, analyzing every detail, searching for any explanation that would make the data less extraordinary than it appeared. I found none. The evidence was clear, consistent, and irrefutable. Something large and biological lived in Loch Ness. I had the proof. And I could tell no one. My wife noticed the change in me. "You've been different since that project in Scotland," she said one evening. "Distracted. Obsessed with something you won't talk about." "What happened up there, David?" "Nothing," I lied. "Just boring equipment testing. You know how it is." She did not believe me, but she did not press. Our marriage slowly eroded under the weight of my secret, the distance growing between us as I retreated further into myself. We divorced in 1993, and I cannot entirely blame her. I had become someone else, someone haunted by knowledge I could neither share nor forget. My career suffered too, though more subtly. I became known as reliable but uninspired, technically competent but lacking ambition. The truth was that after detecting something as extraordinary as what I had seen in Loch Ness, routine radar analysis felt meaningless. What did it matter if I could detect a submarine at 300 meters when I had detected something far more remarkable and been forced to pretend it did not exist? I thought about releasing the data many times over those years. Anonymous leaks to journalists, to scientists, to anyone who might take it seriously. But I always stopped myself. The confidentiality agreement was clear about consequences, and I was not brave enough to face them. I had a mortgage, child support payments, a life that would be destroyed if I was prosecuted under national security laws. So I waited. And I grew old. And the secret grew heavier with each passing year. In 1998, Dr. Helen Morrison died in a car accident. The obituary mentioned her work in acoustic research but nothing about our time at Loch Ness. I attended her funeral, where I saw Commander Webb for the first time since 1987. He had retired from the Navy and looked much older, his face lined with years I had not witnessed. We spoke briefly after the service, carefully avoiding any direct mention of that night. But there was understanding in his eyes. He too carried the burden, the knowledge that we had found something extraordinary and been forced to bury it. "Do you ever think about Scotland?" I asked quietly. "Every day," he replied. "Every single day." "Do you still have?" "No," he interrupted. "They were very thorough. Everything was taken. Everything." He paused. "But I remember. God help me, I remember every detail." I wanted to tell him that I had kept a copy, that the evidence still existed. But paranoia stopped me. What if the ministry was still watching? What if this was a test? So I said nothing, and we parted with a handshake that felt like a shared acknowledgement of something we could never discuss. Simon Fletcher contacted me in 2003 through a carefully worded email that mentioned that unusual contact we tracked in Scotland. We met in a pub in Edinburgh, two middle-aged men bonding over a secret we had carried for 16 years. I tried to forget about it, Simon said over his third pint. Told myself it was equipment malfunction, that we misinterpreted the data, that there had to be a rational explanation. But I can't make myself believe it. I know what we saw, David. I know it was real. Have you kept any records? I asked carefully. No. They took everything. I've thought about going public, but He shrugged. What would I say? I once detected something strange on military sonar. Without evidence, I'm just another crackpot claiming the monster exists. I almost told him about my copy then. But again, paranoia won. If Simon knew I had violated the confidentiality agreement, he would be complicit in that violation. Better to keep him ignorant, keep him safe. We met occasionally over the following years, always carefully vague about the specifics, always stopping short of saying what we both knew to be true. Simon retired in 2015 and moved to Spain. We still exchange Christmas cards, brief messages that never mention Scotland but always carry the weight of shared memory. Commander Webb died in 2019. I learned about it from his son, who contacted me to say that his father had left something for me, a sealed envelope, to be delivered only after his death. Inside was a single page, handwritten. David, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I've carried this long enough. I know they said we must never speak of it. I know the threats were real. But I'm old now, and dead men can't be prosecuted. What we saw that night in September 1987 was real. I've spent 32 years reviewing it in my mind, analyzing it with every tool of military experience I possessed. It was real. I don't know if you kept any records. I suspect you did. You were always meticulous about backups. If so, good. Someone should know. Someone should care that there are still mysteries in this world, still wonders that science has not explained. I never forgot. I hope that matters. Richard. I wept over that letter. For Richard, who had carried the same burden. For Helen, who died never able to speak of what she knew. For Simon, living in Spain and drinking to forget something he could not forget. For myself, who had spent 32 years in silence when speaking might have mattered. And I made a decision. When my time came, when I was old enough, sick enough, beyond the reach of legal threats, I would speak. I would release the data. I would honor the memory of what we had found by refusing to let it remain buried forever. The heart attack came in January 2024. Not severe enough to kill me immediately, but severe enough to make clear that my time was limited. The doctors spoke carefully about managing your remaining years, which was their euphemistic way of saying I was dying slowly and should prepare accordingly. I began organizing my affairs. Updating my will, sorting through possessions, deciding what should be kept and what could be discarded. And I retrieved the encrypted storage device containing the recordings from September 12, 1987. I had not looked at the data in years. Part of me feared it might have degraded, that the files would be corrupted or unreadable. But the encryption held, and when I opened the files, everything was exactly as I remembered. The sonar data showing the massive object moving through the water at impossible depths. The acoustic analysis confirming biological signatures. The time-stamped logs documenting 49 minutes of tracking. The video captures of the radar display showing the undeniable presence of something large and alive. It was all there. Perfect, complete, irrefutable evidence that something extraordinary lived in Loch Ness in 1987. And very likely still lived there now, 38 years later. I spent weeks considering how to release this information. Anonymous upload to the internet? Contact with reputable scientists? Approach to journalists? Each option had risks and benefits, ways it could be dismissed or sensationalized or buried again by authorities who did not want the truth revealed. In the end, I decided the simplest approach was best: record my testimony, upload the evidence, and let the world decide what to make of it. I would not attempt to prove anything, would not argue with skeptics, would not defend my credibility. I would simply present what I had recorded and let the data speak for itself. So I am recording this testimony now, In my home in Aberdeen, speaking to a camera I barely know how to operate but which my grandson assured me will capture my words adequately. And when this recording is complete, I will upload it along with the data files to every platform I can find, ensuring that even if some copies are taken down, others will persist. The Ministry of Defense can no longer threaten me with prosecution. Maritime Systems Limited no longer exists. Most of the people who enforce my silence are dead. And I am dying anyway, my heart failing, my time measured in months rather than years. What can they do to me now? What punishment could be worse than carrying this secret for 38 years? So I am speaking. Finally, completely, holding nothing back. And I am releasing the evidence that proves what I am saying is true. If you're still with me, if you understand the weight of what I'm revealing, please subscribe to this channel and share this testimony widely. The data I'm about to show you has been hidden for 38 years. It deserves to be seen. Now, let me walk you through what the recordings actually show. I am going to describe the data in detail, so that anyone with sonar experience can verify what I am saying. I am not a storyteller. I am a technician. I deal in measurements, in timestamps, in verifiable facts. What I recorded on September 12, 1987 can be analyzed, scrutinized, challenged by experts. I welcome that scrutiny. The data will withstand it. The recordings begin at 01:47:32 hours. The sonar was operating in active mode, transmitting pulses at 12 kHz and receiving returns from all directions around the vessel. Water temperature at depth was 4.2 degrees Celsius. Visibility conditions were optimal for acoustic detection. At 01:47:32, a return appeared on the display at bearing 087 degrees, range 847 meters, depth 421 feet. The object measured approximately 38 feet in length, with a maximum width of approximately 6 feet. The acoustic signature showed clear biological characteristics, muscle density consistent with living tissue, movement patterns indicative of active swimming rather than passive drift. Over the next 8 minutes, the object moved along bearing 092 degrees at speeds varying between 6 and 9 knots. The movement was smooth, controlled, with none of the erratic changes typical of equipment malfunction or data corruption. For distinct appendages were visible on the high-resolution scans, positioned along the body in a configuration consistent with either flippers or limbs adapted for aquatic locomotion. At 01:55:47, the object dove from 421 feet to 618 feet in 27 seconds. That descent rate, approximately 350 feet per minute, is extraordinary for any biological organism. Most marine mammals must ascend and descend slowly to avoid pressure-related injuries. This object showed no such constraint. At 01:59:12, it began circling our vessel at a range of approximately 300 yards. The circle was not perfect, it varied between 280 and 320 yards, but the pattern was unmistakable. The object was examining us, maintaining a safe distance while apparently studying our vessel. At 02:03:44, it surfaced briefly. The surface radar detected a large wake moving at approximately 7 knots, with disturbance patterns consistent with a large body partially breaking the waterline. Duration of surface contact 11 seconds. Then it submerged again, returning to 200 feet depth. The tracking continued until 03:24:18, at which point the object simply vanished from our sensors. Not a gradual fade as it moved out of range, but an instantaneous disappearance. One moment the sonar return was clear and strong. The next moment, nothing. Total tracking time, 49 minutes, 46 seconds. Total data collected, 2.7 gigabytes across multiple sensor systems. Total number of individual sonar returns, over 3,000. Average signal strength, -23 dB, well above the noise threshold of -40 dB. This is not ambiguous data. This is not a vague shadow or a questionable return. This is clear, sustained, high-resolution tracking of a large biological entity in Loch Ness. I have included all of this data with this testimony. The files are large, nearly 3 gigabytes total, but they are complete and unedited. Anyone with expertise in sonar analysis can examine them and draw their own conclusions. I am confident those conclusions will match mine. We detected something real, something alive, something that should not exist according to accepted biological science. But it does exist. The data proves it. For 38 years, I have thought about what we detected that night. What it means for science, for our understanding of biology, for the possibility that there are still major discoveries waiting to be made in places we think we know well. If the creature we tracked in 1987 still exists, and I have no reason to believe it does not, then it represents a species that has survived in isolation for potentially thousands of years. The loch has existed in its current form since the last ice age ended roughly 10,000 years ago. If the creature is a remnant population from that time, it has endured through millennia of environmental change, through the arrival of humans, through the industrialization and tourism that transformed the highlands. That kind of survival requires extraordinary adaptation. The creature would need to be intelligent enough to avoid detection, cautious enough to surface only rarely, efficient enough to survive on whatever food sources the loch provides. The fact that it has remained hidden despite decades of searches, despite sophisticated sonar equipment, despite thousands of tourists watching the water every year, that speaks to remarkable evolutionary success. But what is it? I am not a biologist. I cannot identify species from sonar returns. But the size, the shape, the fur appendages, they are consistent with plesiosaur morphology. Not identical, perhaps, but suggestive. And if the creature is indeed a surviving plesiosaur or something descended from that lineage, the implications are staggering. It would mean that not all the great marine reptiles went extinct 66 million years ago. That at least one species survived, perhaps in deep ocean environments, and eventually migrated to isolated freshwater systems like Loch Ness when sea levels changed after the Ice Age. That evolution continued along paths we never suspected, producing creatures adapted to survive in cold, dark, nutrient-poor environments. It would rewrite paleontology. It would force us to reconsider our assumptions about extinction, about the completeness of the fossil record, about what might still be waiting to be discovered in the deep places of the world. And it would raise urgent questions about protection. If the creature exists, if it is real, then it is almost certainly endangered. Possibly the last of its kind. Definitely vulnerable to human activity, pollution, sonar interference, climate change affecting the loch's ecosystem. We would have a moral obligation to protect it, to ensure its survival, to treat it as the extraordinary natural treasure it represents. But we cannot protect what we refuse to acknowledge exists. And that is the great tragedy of the suppression. By classifying the evidence, by threatening those of us who witnessed it, by burying the data for 38 years, the authorities have prevented any meaningful effort to understand or protect the creature. Perhaps that protection through ignorance has worked. Perhaps the creature has survived precisely because it remains officially unproven, keeping the loch free from intensive scientific intrusion. Or perhaps we have wasted nearly 4 decades during which we could have been studying it, learning from it, ensuring its continued existence. I do not know which is true. But I know the current situation, evidence suppressed, truth denied, creature unacknowledged, cannot continue. Hence this testimony. Hence the release of the data. Hence my willingness to violate confidentiality agreements that should have died decades ago. We're approaching the final chapters now. If David's story has convinced you of the importance of this revelation, please share this video widely. Subscribe so you'll see the data files when they're uploaded. Let this testimony reach scientists, journalists, anyone who can help ensure this evidence receives proper analysis. Now let me tell you about my final preparations. Over the past 6 months, I have been preparing for this moment. Converting the data files to modern formats. Creating detailed documentation explaining the technical specifications. Writing this testimony. Learning how to upload files to various platforms to ensure redundancy in case some copies are taken down. My grandson has been helping me with the technical aspects, though he does not know the full content of what he is helping me prepare. He thinks I am simply digitizing old work records for personal archives. I will tell him the truth when the upload is complete, when it is too late to stop me or be held complicit in my actions. I have also been gathering supporting evidence. Old newspaper articles about other sonar contacts in Loch Ness over the years. Scientific papers on freshwater ecosystems and their capacity to support large fauna. Historical records of sightings dating back centuries. None of this proves what I recorded, but it provides context, suggests that our detection was not isolated but part of a pattern. I have written letters to several marine biology departments at British universities to be mailed after my testimony goes live. The letters explain what I recorded, provide technical specifications of the equipment used, and offer access to the data files for independent analysis. Some will dismiss it as hoax or delusion, but I hope at least a few will look at the data with open minds and scientific rigor. I have also prepared a statement for the Ministry of Defense to be delivered simultaneously with the public release. The statement acknowledges that I am violating the confidentiality agreement I signed in 1987. It explains my reasons, the passage of time, my terminal illness, the scientific importance of the evidence. It offers to cooperate with any investigation they wish to conduct, though I doubt they will bother. Prosecuting a dying 76-year-old man for releasing 38-year-old data would create more publicity than suppression ever could. I am not naive. I know this release will be controversial. Skeptics will attack my credibility, question the data, propose alternative explanations. Believers will seize on it as vindication, probably overinterpret what it actually shows. The media will sensationalize it. The truth will get lost somewhere between those extremes. But at least the evidence will be public. At least people can judge for themselves. At least I will have honored the memory of that night in September 1987 by refusing to let it remain buried. I have no illusions about changing everyone's mind. People believe what they choose to believe, and evidence alone rarely changes deeply held convictions. But I hope this testimony and the accompanying data will accomplish a few specific things. First, I hope it will encourage serious scientific investigation of Loch Ness using modern technology. Our sonar system in 1987 was sophisticated for its time, but technology has advanced dramatically in 38 years. Current systems could potentially detect the creature more reliably, track it more extensively, perhaps even identify it definitively. But such investigations require funding, institutional support, and recognition that there is something worth investigating. Second, I hope it will inspire other witnesses to come forward. I know I am not the only person who has detected or encountered something unusual in Loch Ness. There are fishermen, researchers, military personnel, tourists, dozens, perhaps hundreds of people who have seen or experienced things they could not explain. Many have kept silent from fear of ridicule or professional consequences. My testimony might give them courage to speak. Third, I hope it will pressure authorities to declassify other evidence they may be holding. I doubt our detection in 1987 was the only one. The Royal Navy and other military organizations have been conducting operations around Loch Ness for decades. They must have other sonar data, other unexplained contacts, other evidence they have classified for reasons of security or embarrassment. If enough public interest is generated, perhaps they will be forced to release it. And finally, I hope it will shift the conversation about Loch Ness from tourism and folklore to serious conservation. If there is something living in that loch, something rare, something ancient, something extraordinary, then we have a responsibility to protect it. Not to exploit it for profit or publicity, but to preserve it as the natural wonder it represents. The creature has survived this long by remaining hidden. But hidden does not mean protected. Climate change is altering the loch's ecosystem. Pollution is affecting water quality. Tourism creates noise and disturbance. Without recognition of what exists there, without active conservation efforts, the creature could disappear forever, and we would never know what we had lost. So I am speaking not just to reveal the truth, but to advocate for protection. To ask that if my evidence convinces anyone that the creature is real, they will use that belief to support preservation rather than exploitation. If you've listened to this entire testimony, if you're convinced that David's evidence deserves attention, I'm asking you one final time, share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Contact scientists and journalists and anyone who might take this seriously. Let David's courage in speaking after 38 years of silence mean something. Now, let me conclude with my final thoughts. I am recording this final chapter in late October 2025. My health has deteriorated significantly over the past months. The doctors now say I have weeks rather than months. I am in hospice care, comfortable but fading. This testimony may be the last substantial thing I accomplish before I die. I do not regret speaking. Even if this revelation accomplishes nothing, even if the data is dismissed and forgotten, even if I am remembered only as a delusional old man who violated his confidentiality agreement for nothing, I do not regret it. The truth deserved to be told. The evidence deserved to be released. And I deserve to stop carrying this burden alone. To my family, who will learn about this testimony after I am gone, I am sorry for the secrets I kept. I am sorry for the distance those secrets created between us. I am sorry that I could not be fully present in your lives because part of me was always back in September 1987, watching a sonar screen, seeing something that changed my understanding of the world. I hope you can forgive me. I hope you can understand that I was bound by legal threats I could not ignore, that speaking earlier would have destroyed the career that supported you, that I did the best I could with an impossible situation. To Commander Richard Webb, Dr. Helen Morrison, and Simon Fletcher, my fellow witnesses, I hope I have honored our shared experience. I hope this testimony serves as a memorial to what we saw together, to the wonder and frustration and burden we all carried. Richard and Helen are gone now, but I believe they would have supported this decision to speak. And Simon, if you are reading this in Spain, thank you for the years of quiet understanding. We knew what we saw. That knowledge was enough. To the Ministry of Defense and any other authorities who may be upset by this disclosure, I accept full responsibility for my actions. This was my decision alone. I was not coerced, not pressured, not influenced by anyone else. If you wish to prosecute me posthumously, you are welcome to try, though I suspect it will be difficult to punish a corpse. And to the scientific community, to researchers and analysts and anyone who examines the data I have released, please approach it with open minds and rigorous methodology. Do not dismiss it because it seems impossible. Do not accept it uncritically because you want it to be true. Simply analyze the evidence objectively and draw whatever conclusions that analysis supports. I am not asking you to believe in the Loch Ness Monster. I am asking you to look at sonar data collected by military-grade equipment operated by trained professionals and tell me what that data shows. If you can propose an alternative explanation that accounts for all the evidence, I will accept it gratefully. But if you cannot, if the data truly does show what I believe it shows, then act accordingly. Finally, to anyone who might encounter the creature in the future, treat it with respect. Do not chase it. Do not try to capture it or harm it. Do not exploit its existence for personal gain. If you are fortunate enough to witness something extraordinary, document it carefully, report it honestly, and advocate for its protection. The creature has survived for thousands of years by hiding from humans. The greatest gift we can give it is to respect that choice, to protect its habitat, to allow it to continue its ancient existence undisturbed. I have lived with the memory of September 12, 1987 for 38 years. It has defined me in ways both wonderful and terrible. I have been frustrated by the silence I was forced to maintain, by the evidence I could not share, by the knowledge that something extraordinary existed and I could not acknowledge it publicly. But I have also been privileged. How many people in human history have encountered something truly unknown, truly inexplicable? How many have seen evidence of mystery and wonder in a world that insists everything has been discovered and catalogued? I was given that privilege. I was given proof that there are still secrets in this world, still creatures that defy our understanding, still possibilities we have not imagined. That is a gift. A burden too, certainly, but also a gift. And now, at the end of my life, I am passing that gift forward. The data exists. The evidence is public. What the world does with it is beyond my control now. I have done my part by speaking. Others must decide what comes next. I am tired. So very tired. The medication is making it difficult to think clearly, to speak coherently. I think this is the end of my testimony. I think I have said everything that needs to be said. To whoever is listening to this, to whoever might care about an old man's story about something impossible, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear what I had to say. Thank you for considering the possibility that the world is stranger than we think. Thank you for whatever you choose to do with this information. I am David Sinclair. I was a radar technician for 43 years. On September 12, 1987, I detected something extraordinary in Loch Ness. For 38 years, I was prevented from speaking about it. Now, at the end of my life, I am breaking my silence. The data is real. The creature is real. And I pray that this testimony helps ensure its continued survival. Goodbye.